A grain silo is built from two right circular cones and a right circular cylinder with the internal measurements represented by the figure above. Of the following, which is closest to the volume of the grain silo in cubic feet? Okay, so the first thing we want to do is find the volume formula for each of these shapes. We have a cylinder and we also have two cones. So this information can be found on the beginning of the section where they give the information. So this would be pi r squared times h, and this one would be 1/3 pi r squared h. So you could also write it like this. So we'll start with the cylinder. The radius of the cylinder would be 5, and the height would be 10. So we get pi times 5 squared times 10. Let's grab our calculator. Let's see. So we put in pi times 5 squared times 10, and that gives us 785. 785. Next, we're going to do the volume of the cone. So let's do the topmost cone. The radius would be 5 and the height would be 5. So we do pi times 5 squared times 5 divided by 3. Calculator. So we do pi times 5 squared times 5, and then divide that by 3. And that's going to come to 131. But we have two of these, right, top and bottom, so that would make 262. Then we can add these together. So 785 with 262, 714, and 9 and 1 is 10. So we get about 1047. Answer choice D. In the xy plane, the line determined by these points passes through the origin. Origin is 0, 0. Which of the following could be the value of k? Alright, so if we did a slope formula with these 2 points, we wouldn't get very far, right? Because we would have basically k as an unknown. However, we could also use 0, 0, right? So for instance, we can use 0, 0 along with 2k. Alright, so that would be, the change in y would be k minus 0, change in x would be 2 minus 0, so we just get k over 2, so that's the slope, right? And then we could do the same thing with k32 and 0, 0, right? So change in y would be 32 minus 0, change in x would be k minus 0, would get 32 over k, which is also the slope, right? Now we can set these slopes equal to each other. So we get k over 2 equals 32 over k. So we would cross multiply, and that gives us k squared equals 64. Take the square root of both sides, and we find that k would be equal 8. Choice C. A rectangle was altered by increasing its length by 10%. Okay, so the length became 10% increase. So that would be 1.1 L. Right? If you're not sure how to do that, you start with 100%, you add 10%, you get to 110%, then you move the decimal place twice to the left, as represented by that percent sign, and decreasing its width by p%. So the width decreased by some unknown multiplier. If these alterations decrease the area of the rectangle by 12%, so a 12% decrease, we would start with 12%, start with 100, subtract 12%, that would give us 88%. Then we move the decimal place, we get 0.88 as our multiplier for a 12% decrease. So we apply that to the area, okay, and we now need to solve for x. So basically the area formula is length times width, okay, and then the new area, we'll call it area prime, is equal to length prime times width prime. And of course, length prime is the 1.1 length, 1.1 times length. Width prime would be x, which is an unknown multiplier, times the width. All right, and that is going to equal out to 0.88a. That would be what a prime would equal. All right, so now it's time to put everything together. So we get 0.88a equals 1.1x times LW. And we also know that a is equal to LW, so we could substitute that in here. So we get 0.88 LW is equal to 1.1x times LW. Then we divide by LW on both sides in order to cancel it out. So it cancels out, and we get 0.88 is equal to 1.1 times x. We divide by 1.1 both sides, and that'll give us the value for x. So let's use the calculator. 0.88 divided by 1.1. And that gives us 0.8. Now this is not quite the answer yet, because this is the multiplier that we solved for. So our multiplier is 0.8, or also known as 0.80. So we can interpret this as the percent on. This is the part that we are paying, so to speak. So if we started with, let's say, 100%, and then we subtracted, in this case, we would have to subtract 20% in order to get to 80%, you see. So it would have to be a 20% off. In other words, a 20% decrease. So that would be answer choice C. In planning maintenance for a city's infrastructure, a civil engineer estimates that starting from the present, the population of the city will decrease by 10%. So using multipliers, that would be 0.9 every 20 years. If the present population of the city is 50,000, so 50,000 is the present. So normally we have A equals A0, right? A for amount. Amount equals amount 0 times 1 plus the rate to the t power, right? Which of the following expressions represents the engineer's estimate of the population of the city t years from now? Okay. So in this case, we'll have 5,000, and then we'll have the multiplier here, which would be 0.9. In this case, yeah, 1 plus or minus r, the rate is 10%. So we do 1 subtract 10%, that gives us 0.9. Then the tricky part here is the exponent. So it doesn't happen every year, it happens every 20 years. Okay, so this is going to be t over 20. The reason being is that when we have t equal to 20, we're going to want only one application of this multiplier. Okay, so if t equals 20, we have 20 over 20 equals 1, so we have 0.9 to the power 1. So we're only applying the multiplier one time. Whereas if t equals 40, of course, we'd apply it 2 times, you see. So this matches up with answer choice C. All right, so the table above summarizes the number of left-handed and right-handed students. There are 5 times as many right-handed female. Okay, so let's make these A, B, C, and D, and then we'll create equations, okay? So there are 5 times as many right-handed females. So right-handed female, we're calling the letter B. So B is going to be 5 times the left-handed females. So it's 5 times of A, right? There are 9 times as many right-handed males. So that's D. So D is going to be 9 times the number of left-handed, which would be C. Okay. If there is a total of 18 left-handed students and 122 right-handed students, okay, so that's basically adding these columns. So A plus C would equal 18, and then B plus D would equal 122. Which of the following is the closest to the probability that a right-handed student selected at random is female? So probability is represented as success over total. So we need 2 numbers, one numerator, one denominator. Success in this case would be, let's see, we want it female right-handed student, correct? So female right-handed student is the letter B, okay? And that's out of, let's see, So a right-handed student selected at random, meaning that the total population that we're taking out of is the right-handed students, right? So we're not allowed to select a left-handed student. So the total right-handed students would be the total that we're interested in here, so 122. So the probability is just going to be B over 122. So once we determine what B is, we'll be all set, okay? Right, so we have a system of equations here. We have, looks like four unknowns, A, B, C, and D, right? So we also have four equations, so that means we're able to solve if we do everything the right manner. So let's see. Since we want to solve for B, that means we want to get rid of A, C, and D. So the best way to get rid of variables is to plug in for those variables. So the first step that I'm going to do is to get rid of B. I'm going to plug 5A in wherever I see B. Sorry. So that's going to go in here. So I end up with 5A plus D. And I also want to get rid of D, so I'm going to plug this in for D. Okay, 9C. So yeah. So now I've gotten rid of B and I've gotten rid of D. So my other equation that I haven't used yet is this. So now I've limited it down to a 2x2 system. And at this point, I also want to get rid of B. Well, technically I should have gotten rid of A, shouldn't I? Since I want to solve for B. So let's take a step back here. So we want to get rid of A, so let's isolate A in this first equation. So we'll make A equal B over 5, right? And then we can plug in B over 5 for A in this equation here. Okay? So we get B over 5 plus C is equal to 18. And then we do the same thing that we would have done here. We would have done B plus 9C equals 122. Okay, so now we have a system with just B and C involved. So the next step is to multiply this through by 9. So that would give me 9B over 5 plus 9C equals 9 times 18. So that's 9 times 9 times 2. Right? 9 times 2 times 9. 9 times 9 is 81, so 81 times 2 is 162. And at this point, now I can sort of subtract the lines, right? So I'll just negate the entire top equation. So negative, negative, negative. And then I'll add the lines. So I add the right sides, and that gives me, I think, 40, right? Adding these cancels them out. And this I can make 5 over 5b here, negative. So 9/5 minus 5/5 is 4/5 b. At this point I can move the 5 up and I can move the 4 down. So I end up with b equals 40 over 4 is 10, 10 times 5 is 50. So b equals 50. Then I can plug the 50 into here and do 50 over 122. I'll use the calculator for this. 50 over 122, and that's 0.409. So it's basically 0.410. Choice A.